Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with the leader and drummer Josh Feldstein of the Verve Jazz Ensemble about their newest 2018 CD called Connect the Dots. This is their fifth album, and this New York-based ensemble is always full of upbeat performances and originals and standards and even lesser-known works by classic jazz composers. They have a great sound. We caught up with them about how things have been going lately, this newest release, and a lot more. So please get to know him and this band a little bit more and dig this interview, my friends.
So, Josh, I just got to tell you up front, I know that when we spoke before, I really dug what you guys had, but when I got your catalog and I got this CD in the mail, I just got to tell you, I love you guys. I mean, there's bands that will blow me away that I just can't get enough of, but you guys are definitely on the top of that list for me. If you guys come on, I'm going to be like, I got to keep going. I just got to keep going with these guys.
Oh, well, I don't even know what to say other than thank you. That's really, really kind, and it means very, very much to us to get those kinds of feelings and words, Joe. So thanks a million.
Absolutely, yeah. You guys are doing it absolutely right. So, with that in mind, it was a pleasure because, you know, I'm doing the disc jockey jump with what I'm doing. It was really cool, and I've done it sometimes. I've had shows where I profiled, like, what have cats done to spin tunes, but that was really cool to hear your guys' interpretation and this. And to kind of put it into context, I saw the SF Jazz Collective come through Kansas City back in April, and they did an interpretation of Miles Davis, and theirs was radically different, but you could hear Miles. So I'm always so interested in hearing what the interpretation is. So just to let you know, off the newest album, Connect the Dots, that was a really fun segment to put together.
We enjoyed listening to what you did with it, and what I'll say about Disc Jockey Jump is that it's unfortunately not a really well-recognized tune. The 70 years ago, that tune was recorded by the great Gene Krupa and Jerry Mulligan. And one of the things that is important to our band is to do what we call these big band reductions, where we take these really wonderful big band tunes and try to reinterpret them in a smaller group setting. Now, with Connect the Dots, we have expanded the VJE's quintet to a septet. We have added the absolutely fabulous Alexa Tarantino on both flute and alto. We'll talk more about Alexa, as well as the fabulous Willie Applewhite on trombone. And so we expanded to a septet. And when we had the voicing of these other two horns, we said, what can we do with these other two horns? And I've always loved this particular tune, Disc Jockey Jump. I wanted to pay homage to the great Gene Krupa, of course, as a drummer myself, Krupa and Buddy Rich and Joe Morello, who I had the honor of studying with. These are the kinds of players that inspired me and continue to inspire me. So when we had the opportunity to interpret Jerry Mulligan's composition, Tatum Greenblatt, our trumpet player, and I had a quick chat about this and said, you know, the original composition, the arrangement, it's so good, there really isn't very much to modify. And so we largely kept Jerry's structure, and we expanded the drum solo 16 bars, and we put in some different voicings. But when you listen to the comparison of the original tune to what the VJE performed, it's certainly in the same ballpark, and so much fun to be able to listen to the stretch of 70 years just in a blink, and have the enjoyment of listening to that swinging tune that Jerry Mulligan and Gene Krupa originally wrote. So, you know, lots and lots of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually ran into a Jerry Mulligan LP. I can't remember which one it was, but I needed time alone to listen to it and hear that crackle. And just Jerry's one of those guys that strikes right to the heart. There's a sound that he had that is just, it's pure jazz, man. It's the reason why I fell in love with it. That is definitely a cat to emulate for sure.
So, and if I can make a quick comment in terms of the comparison, I have another one for you that actually takes it in a completely different direction on this album, and that's Stan Kenton's intermission riff.
Yeah.
Now, when you listen to what Stan and his band originally performed back in the 40s, and Stan Kenton is associated with Intermission Riff, Joe, but it was actually written by a young trumpeter at the time named Joe Wetzel, I believe. We said, what could we do with Intermission Riff? Well, you know, when Stan Kenton played that tune, his band just blasted that tune from beginning to end. I mean, it was just a wailing tune from the start to the end of that tune. We couldn't do that. We're only 7 people. We can't do that. So I laid down this really funky Bernard Purdie shuffle while we were messing around with the tune, you know, and the next thing you knew, the guys were like, oh, we could work with that. That's crazy. And so we literally reinterpreted Intermission Riff to a Purdie shuffle. And so when you talk about comparison and contrasting, there couldn't be a bigger distinction between the Purdie shuffle and Stan Kenton's original composition. But at the very end of the tune, we kind of pay homage to the swing component of it, and we swung out the head out of the tune. We swung out, so there was a little nod to Stan. But the comparison between those two tunes, there's miles and miles of space between those two, the original and what we did.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the album, Connect the Dots. Give me kind of your portal from the conception of this album to creating to now very soon, in a few weeks, it will actually be released to the world. Talk to me about it.
Well, you know, the Verve Jazz Ensemble has a very broad palette of tones and grooves, and we really enjoy not only straight ahead stuff, but we enjoy swingers, we enjoy bop, we enjoy hard bop, we enjoy Latin and sambas and bossa. We enjoy mixed metered compositions. We play not only standards, but we play a lot of originals. And we also mix up the structure of our group from trio all the way up to septet. We have both, I think we have 3 trio numbers on this album. We have quintet in several different configurations, and we have septet. And so as we were putting the tunes together, we realized that, man, there's a big palette of sound here. And on the basis of that, one of the compositions that Tatum was working on was a kind of ultimately became Connect the Dots, was a reinterpretation of an original composition of mine that we have yet to record, but there was some components of that led to what is now Connect the Dots that we've performed on this album. And we just said, you know, that's the perfect name really for the album, because it brings together conceptually this broad palette of Verve Jazz Ensemble sound, compositions, voicings, and band configuration. And so there it is, Connect the Dots.
Awesome. So when you think about you guys as a band, this is your 5th album, and to a good degree, it seems like you guys have been at it for a long time, but I always get the feeling from you that you're figuring it out. How do you feel about your evolution as a band?
Well, you know, the word is inspiration from my perspective. We have gotten to a point where we know as musicians what we love. And what we love are beautiful melodies that come from many different eras of jazz. One of the compositions on the current album is an original contemporary sound, On the Run, written by Tatum. It's a very today contemporary sound. And then you contrast that with, for example, Bistro, which was a fabulous composition that I came across by just random happenstance. It was written by Lalo Schifrin, and fell in love with it. There was about a 2-minute snippet that I found on YouTube. I was watching an old video one night, and I heard it. I said, I love that tune. And we turned it into an arrangement for the band. So there you have a kind of a bossa sound that just came out of the early 60s. So when we think about the band, we think, okay, we now know the kind of the strengths and the sweet spot for each of the players, And so now we get to a point where we can begin to pick and choose compositions that really accentuate the range and the sweet spot for all of the different folks in the band, whether it's John Blank on tenor, Steve Einerson on piano, Elias Bailey on bass, Tatum Greenblatt on trumpet, myself on drums. And with the integration now of Alexa Tarantino on trumpet and alto and Willie Applewhite on trombone, we have a very broad array of sounds and grooves that we can pick from, and so we take advantage of that and allow each of the musicians as instrumentalists to step forward and to shine in a whole variety of different compositions and kind of tonal qualities.
So as a band, you're doing some covers and you got original compositions, and I want to ask you this. You're clearly, and I don't think it matters whether it's a original or it's, covering a song like Disc Jockey Jump. I think there's a level of you guys that are paying homage to jazz, past and present. You're pushing it further. So I want to ask you this. How important as an organism, a jazz organism, is it for you, and not only just you, but for jazz musicians today to continue to push jazz forward?
Oh, that's such an important question. One of the things that drives us is the living, breathing interpretation of the music. So when we hear the art that was created 20, 40, 60, 70 years ago by fabulous jazz legends, that was music that was played at a time and in a place that doesn't exist any longer. So what we try to do is we try to take those essential qualities, whether it's melodic or harmonic or rhythmic, and try to give it a new sense of urgency and push that forward in our music. So it's important to pay homage to the great musicians of the past, but there are a lot of fabulous, amazing musicians today too, and they're also creating great stuff. So the art form has got to continue to evolve. It can't be stagnant from our perspective, and so our goal is to breathe new life and new energy into these tunes in a way that not only reflects the homage that we feel quite genuinely to the great musicians of the past, but imbue it with all of the vitality of contemporary jazz thinking and musicianship.
So there was no way that Jerry Mulligan and Gene Krupa could have even imagined that the world of jazz musicians decades and decades later would cover their tunes. So I ask you this in kind of a fantastical way that I've done with other questions with you, and this is what I want to ask you. If 50 years from now there was a musician that decided to emulate one of your original tunes as a band, what would you want them to cover? What do you think would be a cool tune for them to cover?
So many interesting possibilities here. Well, if I'm thinking about originals, I would have to say one of the tunes from Perimeter is a composition that I wrote, and the name of that tune is Two for Daddy. And it's a great swinger that, from my perspective, could even be a theme song to a spy movie. And when you hear the tune, you'll know what I'm saying. And so that tune would be a lot of fun for somebody to dig into. I'd love to see people spin that off in all kinds of different directions. So that would be one. And if you're looking for more, I would say that Two Crooks on the Delta, which is an original composition of Tatum, would be fabulous. And then both the original composition, Perimeter, by John Blank from our Perimeter album, and then on the current album, Autumn Left, which is another John Blank original, I think also has so much room for interpretation. I could even hear that with even in an orchestral setting with strings, and it could be a very, very different interpretation depending upon the size of the band or the orchestra. So, okay, those are four possibilities for 50 years in the future. How's that sound?
I like it. I dig it. The Magic Quartet. So let me ask you this. how much fun is this going to be to actually go out and play this album live for the fans?
We've got a show in New York City at Club Bonafide September 29th, and we're looking forward to that very, very much. It's going to be an opportunity to play literally the entire album from top to bottom. We're looking forward to it enormously because it's an opportunity for the entire septet to play together. It's difficult to get our guys in the same space at the same time. Everybody is so busy, so we end up booking, literally months in advance. I think it's going to be a very, very special experience because everybody loves the music that we've put together for this album, Joe. And the band also really has a tight relationship. We hang out together, and we're very close personally and professionally. And when we have a chance to play, that always comes through the music. So we're looking forward to bringing that forward very, very much.
Perfect. Well, I always get to the end of the interview, and I'm always asking when you're going to come to Kansas City. But I got to say, I would love to come to New York and catch you guys at some point. So keep the candle lit, and at some point I need to get up that way and catch it. So, Josh, thank you for the music. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you talking about Connect the Dots.
Thank you so much, Joe. It's always a pleasure, and your program, Neon Jazz, is a favorite, and we can't thank you enough for doing what you're doing for the music and for the listeners all over the world.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in New York City, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks again to Josh on behalf of the Verve Jazz Ensemble for opening up about this wonderful band. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com. And for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.